Hello, everyone. We're here in The Path Less Taken.
Yes.
I'm Anabela Bergero.
And I'm Marie Nazria.
And we're talking about...
Acceptance.
Yes.
Most importantly, self-acceptance.
Yeah.
Because it always starts with you.
Yes, definitely.
And then once you understand and once you practice, you can share it within your life with the people you love and the people around you.
Mm-hmm. What's coming to me right now when you're sharing this is, in as much as we're able to hold ourselves and the multiplicity of our being, accepting who we are, we're also able to hold that space for others.
Absolutely. If you don't accept yourself, you can't accept others. Mm-hmm. So it's so important that all the work starts with you, starts within you. And then once you start doing it, you can start sharing. You know, they always say, like, be good with yourself and then you can be good with other people. Like, give yourself energy so you can share that energy. If you have no energy, you can't share it with anybody.
It also, I agree in a way, and I'm practicing something very different lately in my life, which is the relational aspect of learning. The relational aspect of, yes, it starts with the self, but then when you add the layer of this interaction with the other, like there's a whole new just dimension in the way in which we're learning these tools.
Yeah. Well, because you can control your own...
Definitely.
You know.
And stay within the realm of the self.
But then you bring in like another subject or another energy. It's like, oh my God, how do I manage this, right?
Yeah.
So that's also really important, is like acceptance within your relationships. Mm-hmm. I kind of like to start with me small. I like to start small and then conquer more and more. Mm-hmm. So like first, like accepting how I'm feeling that day, whether it's good or bad, accepting that things may or may not go wrong in that day, accepting that I may or may not have the kind of experiences that I want to have in that day. And when I feel like when you already surrender or accept that, then you're left with, you're not bumping up against a wall like, that's not supposed to go that way, or I'm so frustrated about that. Like, you know what I mean?
You're describing some moments in my life.
Let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it. I think you mentioned a keyword as well, which is surrender. And that's a practice I've been applying in my life for the past 6 months, I would say, very consciously, because we read the book, A Return to Love.
I'm still reading that book, but yeah, it's amazing.
Which talks about the surrendering aspect of, right? You're giving yourself into life that wants to manifest through you. And you're not trying to control things, and you're not trying to kind of put all of the pieces together in a way that's predictable. Because the reality is that life is very unpredictable.
Absolutely.
There's like having expectations sometimes is pretty much like holding life in this box when just life really purrs out of the cracks of this box.
Absolutely.
So
it's because that creates resistance.
Yes.
To live in a box, to conform to even your own ideas, even your own goals sometimes. Like if I have a goal of doing something, I can't see past it. What if there's something greater than that goal for me?
I think about that all the time.
So it's like staying open, staying accepting, like things are gonna happen that don't work, but then you can realize that sometimes they actually end up working out. Like especially when you look back at things in life, like you're like, oh, it's so crazy that event happened that really affected me. But today I'm who I am and I'm where I am because of that action. Like divorce. Like when you're going through divorce, you're like, why me? Why is this happening? This sucks, my life, blah, blah, blah. But then years later, you look back and you go, oh my God, that was the greatest thing that's like ever, like that happened for me. The day of my liberation, the day of my freedom of self to go.
You got the opportunity to embark on this journey of like self-discovery, self-knowledge, self-acceptance as well. I'm thinking about our name, The Path Less Taken, which is pretty much the path that goes beyond the box we put ourselves sometimes in. And how is acceptance related to that path less taken?
Accepting the unknown.
Because you have it.
I think that's where we hang out a lot.
There you have it.
We hang out in the very unknown place.
Yes.
Where there isn't a rule book, or there isn't, after I do this is going to happen. We're kind of, what's this? What's going on here? Accept this. and accepting things sometimes can be seen as like a negative thing, like, oh, I'm just going to accept that, or like it sounds like settling a little bit sometimes, but I don't think it is, or compromising. But compromising is important, but that's another story.
That's the next one. Podcast. That's the next one.
We could talk about compromise, but acceptance is so important. It's also related to the way you talk to yourself. Accepting yourself is so important. All the warts and all, as people say. Like, we were having a conversation earlier about you looking at photos of yourself a year ago, and you had like kind of like, who is that? What's going on there?
I had a little crying session last night looking at pictures of me 1 year ago.
And if you would just look at that and be like, wow, that's where I was. I accept that, and I accept where I am now. It's really taking ownership of your life, of your journey, of the choices you make in your life. It's a place of like
agency or choice.
Yeah, and love, and you're holding yourself up, and you have to hold yourself up. No one else is going to hold you up.
So beautiful that you mentioned love with acceptance as well. To what extent, in as much as we accept ourselves, we're also able to kind of expand the way in which we show up for ourselves and love ourselves. So
absolutely.
Acceptance is pretty much related to the way in which we can love and our capacity to love ourselves and other people as well.
Yes.
Because in this kind of relational aspect, right, you encounter the other, and it's another which is very different to like, who am I, and like my value system, and like getting to know that other person, accepting that other person, loving that other person as well, expands you within.
I think it's also like when you're in a relationship, when you see your partner's flaws or your partner's shortcomings or little things even that are annoying, when you choose to accept that, you actually end up loving it weirdly. You end up being like, oh, you know what? I'm not going to be managed, run by, held back from this. This is just who this person is. And
mention one example.
Like,
One example. We want to hear one example of it. Like a quirky thing.
I'm trying to think. I'm an open book.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think.
But sometimes it's these small things that are almost like...
Okay, I have a great one. My boyfriend cuts his own hair.
Yes?
Yes.
Oh.
And the first time he told me he did it, I was like, what? I don't understand. First of all, letting a man cut his own hair sounds like the scariest thing in the world.
Well, and are you letting him cut your hair?
No, I'm not letting him. But I kind of cut my own hair sometimes too, but I just think a man cutting his own hair sounds scary. He has to do the back and everything, So the first time he told me about it, I was like, that's so strange. Like, I've never met a man who cuts his own hair. And I wanted to like almost not accept it, because I hadn't ever experienced it before. And then he like came out of the shower and his hair actually looked good. And I was like, is he talented at cutting his own hair? So now I think it's like the cutest thing that he can do that. And I could have made it something that bothers me, like where he's like, I'm going to go cut my hair, babe. And I'm like, oh, he's going to go cut his hair. Nobody cuts their hair, their own hair.
And then I
think it's like a powerful thing. And it's so cute because it lends itself to other things that are just make up the man that he is, that I think is kind of incredible. And I've never had that experience before. So that's like one thing, a small, cute little acceptance moment. But really, again, it goes back to you, accepting where you are. Accepting how you feel.
What happens? Yeah, no, because it's like all of you, what you're sharing, and even like this story of like the very mundane act of like, hey, I'm cutting my hair, and you're like, what's happening? What comes to me is like when we're not accepting ourselves of the other, at least I go to fixing mode. I want to fix it. I want to change it. I want to control it. And when I'm in that space of fixing, controlling, changing it, it's like no, like.
That just drains you. It drains you too. Like, because if you can't fix and control everything in your environment, but you can try, and it's exhausting.
It's exhausting, and why trying?
You're just gonna find more things to fix.
Even with yourself, right? So I'm like, how do you identify when you're not in this self-acceptance mode? For me, when I'm in this kind of space of like fixing. So I love when I catch myself doing these sort of things. I'm like, hey, Anna, just like, remember to love yourself. Remember to accept yourself. Also the other person. I go into fixing mode with the other. And it's like, oh my God, I'm being a pain in the ass right now. Like, not why, but like, just like, again, pause. accept it, let it be, and love it.
You know, the truth is, I just think there's nothing really wrong with anybody.
That's the thing.
But we come with our constructs, with our ideas of things. And I remember this haircut thing really triggered me.
Yeah, imagine.
I just something in me kept saying, it's not normal.
You wanted to take him to the hairdresser.
I was like, what is going on? Is this a red flag? Like,
yes.
What is, like, because I was protecting myself, you know?
Yeah.
I did not Google it.
No, I Googled so many things already so far.
I bet you did.
Don't do it. No good.
It depends. It depends. Right?
It depends.
It depends. Google some things, not everything.
Not everything is a red flag as well.
No, exactly. This hair cutting thing, he's a genius, is the reality. But it took me a lot of getting past my own ideas, my own constructs, my own things. Like sometimes I'd hear like my mom's voice in my head. I didn't even realize like, oh, he's cutting his hair. Like, you know, and not like, you know, like it just, we come with so much stuff, so much ideas, so much programming, if you will. And then when you get into a relationship with someone else, they come with their own programming.
Wow.
And then if you want to be in a healthy relationship, you can't be held up or held down by not accepting things that your partner does. Like, we all come from very different places, and we can learn a lot from each other, you know, like a lot from each other. So I think the more that we accept ourselves and accept the people around us for being whoever the hell they are, the more at peace we can be, and the more we can see things, and the more it's less stressful for yourself is the secret. It's like, I want to accept this or I want to resist this. Like, I don't want to spend my day resisting things that are not common to me.
And you feel it in the body. That resistance, I feel it in the body.
Yeah, tighten up.
Yes, and the chest and
yeah.
And then I feel how my heart starts shutting a little bit down. And then I feel like a lack of spaciousness within me. And the more I'm accepting, the more I feel my heart opening, my chest expanding, and I have more spaciousness within to really hold myself and other people and what's happening in my environment without being triggered, without being in like this...
It's such a healthier place to live.
It's a healthy place to live. It's a delicious place to live.
Delicious.
It's a delicious place to live. I'm thinking about as well these inner voices, right? This programming. And sometimes we don't accept ourselves because of all these inner voices we carry. So for me, it's been such a journey of pretty much deconstructing all of these inner voices and recognizing where they're coming from and making a choice whether I want to continue carrying that inner voice and that inner structure, which is pretty much preventing me sometimes from accepting parts of myself that I struggle with. So there's a saying that we need to integrate and include the exiled parts we have of ourselves. So our being through life, we just walk through life and sometimes we exile parts of ourselves. Exile, like an exile. Like we just take them out of our inner system. And the more we go into this journey of self-love and healing is integrating these exiled parts of ourselves and say, those are also parts of me. And about acceptance, it's like, it's very beautiful to accept all the beautiful parts you have. But then you look in the mirror and you're like, you see some ugly things. I see some ugly things about myself.
Normal.
And I'm like, wait, it's so easy to accept how, you know, just like great I am. But then how do you accept these other parts of yourself as well?
Yeah. Sometimes I have these moments where I'm not proud of something that I said or that I did. And instead of beating myself up about it, because that doesn't help the situation either, I go, okay, that's new, or that's something I didn't realize was happening for me. That was really not where I ever want to be coming from. That doesn't really define me. It was more of a reaction or a response or just an old programming of me. And so I stop and I take a minute and I'm just very mindful of it. And I say, you know, this doesn't serve me, and I release it. I just let it go, like it's an idea.
And you accept as well. I accept that I acted like this.
Yeah, I take accountability. The accountability is so important. So be like, wow, I was just such an asshole. Wow, I don't want to be like that. I'm gonna go apologize for what I said, and either talk about where it came from or tell them that I really didn't mean it. 'Cause sometimes we also say things we don't mean, and then release it. And I think the more you do that kind of work, the more you accept yourself, the more you clean up your like inventory of like your psyche.
I like the inventory of the psyche.
I'm very inventory.
It's like the drawers, like the archives. It's like, this file, this other file.
I don't make it emotional. I make it like an archive of different things. Like, I acted like that because this happened to me. And so I don't like that I acted like this because this happened to me. I have to accept that this happened to me so that I don't act like that. And then I throw away this acting like.
Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt, but like acceptance is a very different like energy to come from when you have to kind of see yourself through like this light of like, hey, I've done something that I'm not proud of, rather than my go-to, which is guilt. Not shyness, no.
Yeah, guilt.
Yeah.
Guilt is
guilt is really like, that's not taking accountability at all. So when I'm catching myself saying something that was not cool to say, then my go-to is guilt, because I don't know, Catholic.
Like to sit in the guilt.
Catholic guilt.
I was going to say I'm Jewish.
Yes,
We've got nothing but guilt.
I mean, it's part of the programming. So
the Catholic and the Jew and how we deal with guilt.
It's a whole journey. That's another episode as well. So the beautiful thing is like when that comes up, it's like, oh, I want to create space to accept which is happening to me. Which is happening to me, and not go to guilt, which is not taking accountability, not showing up for myself or the other person.
It's like sitting in shit.
It's sitting in shit. So
don't sit in shit.
That's
it's stinky. It's stinky.
It's stinky. Sometimes though, you can just like pass above it. So you have a notion of what your shit looks like.
I was going to say, if you're on a personal journey, you've sat in shit.
Yes, you definitely.
I'm just trying to like alleviate how much shit you sit in. Guilt is
such a metaphor.
Guilt is like a place where nothing is really happening.
No, you're not
just
accepting yourself.
You're just sitting there going, oh man,
and feeling bad, and
you're just like holding all the energy. You're like, ugh, but nothing's going. You're not creating anything with it.
Oh my God! Wait, did you say creating?
Yeah,
because it's such a powerful thing.
Yeah, you're just sitting in like festering in crap.
Yeah.
Instead of saying, I'm going to take the crap, I'm going to build like a ladder, I'm going to climb out of here and go accept and go, take accountability. And we have to do that with us. We have to do that with us. And then when we do that with us, then we can show up like that for other people. And like even like family stuff, like I don't want to go too long into this because we're already, reaching our limit of time for this episode. But like even our parents, like they're not perfect, obviously, right? But we have this idea that they are when we're little because we have to listen to them, etc. And when you get older and you have like resentment for certain parents or both your parents or whatever your situation is, I had a lot of resentment for both my parents at different times in my life. When I made the choice to accept them for who they are as humans, it was like, it literally changed my life and my relationships with them. They weren't on a pedestal anymore. And no one should be on a pedestal.
You were able to hold them in the entirety of their being.
My dad almost cried when I told him, I accept you and thank you for everything you've done. I release you from...
I release you.
I said, I release you from this responsibility. I'm good. And he literally didn't know, like he almost didn't speak. And I heard him like on the phone because I called him and told him that. And it was beautiful because there was an energetic shift in our relationship where he was basically told... My child just called me and said, I'm an adult now, and I love you, and I accept you for who you are, warts and all, and thank you. Powerful, powerful stuff, which we'll talk about another time, too.
So who are you holding this week with love and acceptance, and how are you communicating that to them?
But start with yourself.
And start with yourself.
So maybe choose something that you don't accept about yourself and sit with that, or learn to unpack that, learn to deal with that. Like, I'm trying to think of something I don't really accept about myself. I think that I've done enough work that I actually fully accept myself in a weird way. Thing. Is there something you don't accept about yourself?
I still feel a lot of resistance in regards with
vulnerability.
See you in the next episode. Stay tuned.
Are you serious? Sí, de verdad? Ay, ay, ay. Okay, so
we love you.
I'm joking. Okay, she's joking.
So vulnerability can be it. I think it's vulnerability with intimate relationships and accepting, really holding space for the other person and not imposing myself with my value system.
And now that you've
other.
Declared that,
yes,
you can start to slowly, small pieces, start to accept that.
We're holding hands. She's like supporting me through like me sharing this.
See,
what am I sharing?
This is the real deal. So you are going to start accepting little pieces and parts of yourself within that. And at some point, you're going to realize that you don't have to practice it anymore because you've actually become... You've actually learned to accept that.
Therefore, I feel it's also creating more spaciousness in the way I can show up and accept the other person.
Or not show up.
Or not show up and accept.
And let them.
Ooh, yeah.
Let them show up.
Taking that.
Take that.
Take that.
So we love you. We hope this helped.
Bye.
Bye.
I'm holding.
We have to have a chat. Thank you for listening.